Greetings and welcome to the Pransform podcast. This is episode 4, and it's Tuesday, October 26th. So welcome back, guys. Hope you guys have had a chance to listen to our first 3 episodes where we, aside from our introduction episode, we talked about so far email marketing, in terms of the iOS 15 changes that Apple made, and then our last episode was about choosing a logo and how to do that for your business. So hopefully you've gotten some value out of those. And today's episode, I want to talk about just some common challenges that small businesses and CPAs in particular face. I'll explain in a moment why I'm singling out CPAs, even though it's sort of has broad appeal, I think, the things that we're going to talk about in this podcast. But just to kind of set the table, guys, this is a conversational kind of look at some of these types of challenges that you face as a small business owner. It's not exhaustive. There's probably unique challenges that you face in your own industry or in your own circumstance or your personal life, blending with starting your business and things like that. But these are some of the big things that we notice when we work with small businesses, some of the areas that we can help provide leverage and help alleviate the burden that comes with these types of things I'm going to talk about today. So I'm just going to kind of walk through it somewhat casually. I think you probably could get a whole episode out of any one of these things, and at some point we may drill down and focus in that regard on some of these items. But I just want to kind of skim the wave tops, I guess you could say, in this episode. And I mentioned at the beginning we were going to focus on CPAs, and one of the reasons that you'll see some of my comments tailored in that direction is because Pransform, from its inception, has traditionally worked with CPAs because one of our core services is offloading tax preparation, accounting, bookkeeping, things of that nature. But what's interesting about that is a lot of that could carry over to any small business. I mean, all small businesses need to prepare tax returns for their business, to make sure their accounting is up to par, make sure their bookkeeping is up to snuff. So basically, what you'll see as I go through these is a lot of overlap and a lot of carryover from what you may be experiencing as a small business who's not a CPA. But occasionally there will be some areas that I specifically focus on that would only apply to CPAs. So you can sort of filter those out as you go along. So let's just kind of go down the list real quick. There's actually 7 different items that I'm going to talk about briefly, each one on this episode. And they are as follows. So competition, we're going to start there. We're going to talk about technology and just kind of staying up to speed with the latest technology. Growth, like what you do when it's time to scale your business. Differentiating your business. Managing workload. Staying up to speed with industry changes, standards, certifications, things of that nature. And then just IT security, which is kind of a administrative item in some ways, but it can be very debilitating if it's not paid attention to correctly. So anyway, let's start with competition. And you guys got to forgive me as I partake of my coffee as we go along here in this episode. So just bear with me as we go through the episode. So competition is probably one of the major things you guys are facing as you start your businesses or as you operate your business. You're always jockeying in that field of other choices and possibilities that a customer has. A customer comes to you, potentially wants to work with you. They're always measuring you up against competition, whether they have specific other businesses in mind that they're comparing you to, or just the possibility that they have more choice than just you, even if they haven't specifically looked at anybody else. That's just a reality that you face all the time. And with new businesses starting every day, that competition increases every day in some respects. Of course, some businesses close and fail and go away, but it seems when you're a small business owner, it just seems like that field is getting more and more and more crowded, if you will. That can sometimes be perception, that can sometimes be reality, but it's definitely something that you will tangle with as you start and grow your business. So when we talk about competition, how to beat the competition, and let's talk for a second as an individual CPA. You may feel like you're delivering a commodity. Okay, you're just doing somebody's tax return. Somebody else could do that person's tax return. That person could do their tax return. So it's very easy to kind of get lost in being like everybody else, unless you're getting personally referred, or you're getting all your clients through friends and family, and they all trust you. Obviously, there's an angle there, but being aware that there's other firms that are possibly going to charge less or whatnot is something that's going to be top of your mind almost all the time. So 3 key ways that you can deal with that. Start with your pricing. Okay, so obviously you can always be auditing your pricing and staying competitive there. You may find that as you continue to operate your business and you grow more efficient, that you can actually lower your prices a little bit, maybe carve out some of the competition that way because you can afford to, right? So there's always the pricing angle, but it's not the one that you always want to have to go to because you don't want to race to the bottom and you don't want to undercut your own value, but it's always a possibility, so we have to mention it. A second area that you can deal with competition is sort of measuring up your services against the ones that you're competing with, right? So when you deliver your services to a client, you can do so in a way that is, perhaps a little bit, a little bit different from what somebody else is going to give that makes you stand out. So, for example, let's say you're completing business tax returns for clients. You may decide that everybody else just delivers the tax return. So what you're going to do is walk through it line by line with the client. It may be a little more time consuming, it may put a little bit more of a burden on you initially, but it's also going to make you stand out some, right? So you can kind of go service by service and look and see, is there any room for opportunity there for me to exploit what other firms are not willing to do, right? What other firms are not up to, they're not up for it, basically, but you are. And you can kind of pull away from the pack in that regard. Another possibility, which is similar to that, but it now brings in new dimensions, and this is the third aspect of dealing with competition, is customizing your solutions that you deliver to clients in sort of a combination-oriented way. So let me explain what I mean by that. So you could say to a client, okay, you're bringing me your tax returns. I notice that every time I do your tax returns, we have questions about, items that we get from your books that we're entering into these tax returns. So I'm going to offer you at a slightly reduced rate, if you bring me your tax returns, bookkeeping services. So I'm going to, you can bring me your, let's say your Form 1120 for your corporation, and you can also, attach your QuickBooks file, and I will go through it and, give you like, essentially an audit and, fill in any blanks that need to be filled in along the way type of a thing. Okay, so that's a way to sort of package your services uniquely, combine different skills and areas that you maybe traditionally provide by themselves and create an entirely new offering by doing that. And again, this could apply to other industries besides CPAs. I mean, if you're a small business owner who does something else, you may have similar types of different verticals that you have expertise in, and you can provide packages of those verticals that bring in new customers. Somebody who's willing to, maybe wasn't willing to do service X with you, but because they know you'll do X plus Y, they are willing to do business with you. Okay, so that's definitely something that can help you pull away from your competition and make you a little bit different, a little bit unique, from everyone else. Okay, so let's go on to the second one, which is talking about like the latest technology. So so the pace of technology is changing, at blinding speed, I think would be a fair statement. And, as a small business, you already have many things to contend with, keeping up with all the latest trends, all the latest changes in your industry, all the latest technological requirements that might bear on your industry. I mean, it could be a full-time job, right? So when you look to gain leverage to be able to be more efficient, to serve your clients better, to serve more clients, you may find that specifically looking for ways to keep up with that technology without having to do it yourself individually is a way that can, again, sort of differentiate you, can help you gain an edge, that sort of thing. And this is one area, shameless plug here, but this is one area where Pransform really helps our clients, because in some ways, as they evolve their business and, let's say, preparing taxes and doing bookkeeping and so forth, if they're running into clients and prospects who want things done a certain way or already started doing things a certain way with a certain type of, let's say, software, and they want to work with that CPA, but that CPA is not totally up to speed on that particular platform or that particular, software product for producing, bookkeeping or whatnot, they can leverage a firm like Pransform that has a wide aperture of expertise and knowledge in lots of different tax softwares and lots of different bookkeeping softwares. So in that sense, by outsourcing to us, there's an immediate gain in technological acumen, because you sort of now own the team's experience and you own this large group. I mean, we have about 100 plus size team. So all of a sudden, when you, let's say, partner with us and do business with us, you sort of gain all that knowledge and experience and scale overnight. Okay, so it kind of alleviates the need to know every single platform, software, etc. that gets thrown your way, right? So that's keeping up with the latest technology, and it's worth a mention all by itself. Now, in that vein of leverage and scale, let's talk for a second about growth management, right? So, take an individual CPA, for example, here. They've been doing their business for a while. You've been doing your business for a while. You've got a certain number of clients, that you've anticipated workload from and so forth. And then all of a sudden you have an opportunity to gain a lot of new clients in, let's say, a short period of time. And you're like, okay, I want to bring these clients on, but I don't think I have the capacity for it. I just don't think I can scale that quickly. And so this is a challenge that, as a small business, as an individual CPA, for example, you're going to face at some point. If you're doing well with your business and you've got a great reputation and the word is out there that you do great work, eventually you're going to face the possibility that you have an opportunity to grow your business and scale your business if only you had the time, if only you had the bandwidth to do it. And so when it comes to growth management, looking for those leverage points where all of a sudden, when you work with a firm like ours, you basically, all you need to do is be the magnet for the business, right? You just need to draw the clients to your firm. And then once you've drawn them to you, you can now offload them to our team, okay? And so all of a sudden, like I said, you gain access to 100 plus team of tax preparers, bookkeepers, etc. And now the sky's the limit. You can literally take on, theoretically, enormous amounts of business compared to what you could have before. So, leverage is extremely important when it comes to scaling up. Okay? Okay, so let's go on to item 4, which was we were going to talk about differentiation. And this, in some ways, goes back to what I talked about with regard to competition. But this is differentiation, for the sake of differentiation and being unique, whether it's something you have to do vis-a-vis your competition or not. And this is the idea that you want to create a unique service that makes your customer feel like, yeah, I just got sort of a special level of treatment. I got a unique level of treatment that I probably wasn't going to get anywhere else, right? And so just in terms of delivering value to your customer, creating differentiation is a great approach no matter how it stacks up against anyone else. Okay, so that's why I kind of wanted to return to it here in this fourth item is, as a CPA, as a small business, you have a chance to be highly flexible and highly agile with regard to your clients. I mean, very large firms, even though they have lots of people, there's often a way of doing things, right? There's a process that gets followed all the time. It's a big machine, right? But for your business, you have a chance to craft your offerings and your services in a way that's very unique, that's very tailored, right? So when you can differentiate by flowing with the customer's requirements and saying, okay, you have a unique set of circumstances here, and I'm going to craft my offering around those circumstances, right? You probably already have a core offering that you've advertised, that you've priced out, but then you work with that client and you say, look, I understand your situation's a little different. Your situation's a little unique. You need a combination of services that's different from the next person. So I'm going to be your boutique solution for that unique set of requirements. So just that act alone can create a loyal customer, because they may feel like, okay, who else is going to do that for me? Who else is going to react to my situation in that manner, right? So it's very important that you look for opportunities to differentiate, whether or not it has anything to do with your competition. It's just a way to create a great experience for your customer, okay? Okay, so item 5, workload management. So we talked a second ago about growth management, which is a little different, because with growth management we're saying, hey, I've got X number of clients, X number of returns, and I really want to scale it up at an order of magnitude that I just can't do. And so I definitely need to go somewhere else and get help for it, right? But when we're talking about workload management, it may not necessarily have anything to do with scaling, to enormous heights, or bringing in tons of new business. It could be a situation where what worked for you yesterday doesn't work for you anymore today, capacity-wise, right? So maybe your personal circumstances changed to such an extent that, last year you were fine doing 500 tax returns, but since then, from then till now, you had a new birth in your family, and you have a small child, and you find that you want to be more available for your spouse, for your child. And now all of a sudden 500 tax returns is way too many, right? It used to be a breeze, but now it's way too many. So this is almost like, in a sense, it's a reverse growth management, where you may find that you actually, what used to be a good number now is way too high of a number. And again, if this is, a situation where it's a business besides CPA, you may find similar types of challenges arise with your industry, where you had a certain degree of bandwidth that created a certain amount of opportunity for you in your business, and then maybe overnight, maybe in a short period of time, suddenly that's too much workload, that's too much capacity being asked of you. And so when you look at your options, again, this is a chance to leverage, in the case of a firm like Pransform, a team that can take much of that burden off your hands, kind of reduces your workload, if you wanted it to, reduces your workload to just bring in new business if you want to bring it in. And other than that, you're taking the workflow and you're leveraging this team that you have on the back end to reduce that workload. And it could be a temporary solution. It could be like, hey, until you going back to the analogy of having a small child, my child has grown up a little bit, now I want to go back to doing these tax returns on my own, or I want to grow the number of tax returns I'm bringing in, and then you go ahead and do that. But whether it's temporary or permanent, workload management is definitely a concern for small businesses that we can help with. Firms like ours can help with. Obviously, we would love to win your business, but the real point here is that you have to constantly be thinking about, okay, where is my workload in relation to my capacity? And kind of go from there. So that's definitely a common challenge that small businesses face, because again, it's often just the owner, maybe the owner plus one, plus two. If you're a real small firm, if you're medium-sized, again, proportionally, you just may not have the staff to keep up with the workload that's coming in due to changes in your business, in your personal life, your personal circumstances, things of that nature. Okay, so let's move on to item number 6, which is sort of updates or new trends, new requirements, new skills that come with your industry. When it comes to taxes, for example, let's face it. I mean, tax laws seem to be changing all the time now. There seems to be, almost a regular degree of fluctuation that's happening now with that industry, where new laws are impacting the tax code, which is impacting the way returns are prepared. Forms are changing, rules are changing. In some cases, long-standing rules are changing. And so there's these seismic shifts going on to a certain degree. And I'm kind of referring here in the States. As I record this podcast, there's a massive tax proposal working its way through the government that could really change the complexion of, the tax laws in terms of what people have been used to for a long time for different areas of tax law. So with those changes and with those fluctuations, again, it can almost feel like you have a new full-time job, which is just keeping up with those changes, keeping up with those rules. And so in order to do that, you're either redoubling your own efforts, right? You're doing your own research, your own learning, your own attending classes, getting certifications, getting up to speed on the new laws, or you can leverage and you can buy into the power of a larger team that operates on the back end that keeps up with those type of things for a living, and is doing the same thing you're having to do, but is handling it on a broader scale, bandwidth-wise and capacity-wise. With regard to Pransform, our 100-member team, this is part of what we have to do, is to stay on top of these changes in these laws and so forth, so that firms like yourself don't have to. Okay, now obviously to some extent you're going to be familiar with it, so you can explain it to your clients, but it's very different between conceptual analysis that you can deliver a client when a tax law changes versus literally having to go through the entire process of learning how to do it and how to prepare those returns and so on and so forth. Okay, so that brings us to the last item, which is IT security. So, in this day and age with technology and data breaches and all those types of things that seem to be popping up, you see this stuff in the news, you see all kinds of stuff about IT security and protecting data and having secure systems and so forth. This is just an area that, as a small business, you have to be aware of, especially when you're talking about protecting client data, personal information, things of that nature. It's just, it's the headache that you don't need, and it really helps when you can create sort of a layered approach or defense to that type of thing. So if you're partnering with us, for example, we have very professional controls built in to that sort of thing, to protect against that sort of thing, and to make sure that your data is secure, your client's data is secure, so on and so forth. So it's not a real complicated thing. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but making sure you're not being hacked or you're not subject to a fraudulent incident is definitely something that small businesses need to be concerned about when they're working with clients, and just be very mindful of that going forward. So that being said, kind of brings us to the end of the list. Again, like I said, that's 7 of the challenges that you may face, and it's not all the challenges you may face, but what we want to convey from a Pransform perspective is that we are aware of these types of challenges. We understand what clients are going through when they deal with these types of things, and we are here to help alleviate them. I mean, almost all of these things are are, if not every single one of them, are things that we have dealt with before in terms of assisting clients and prospects in growing, steadying, protecting their business. And it's what we do for a living. So anyway, guys, as always, you can follow us on social media. You get the links in the show notes. Please, give us a follow, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Follow us here on the podcast for new episodes. We're publishing twice a week, so every Tuesday and Thursday you can come here for a new episode, and we just want to bring you as much value as we possibly can with practical advice, with conceptual advice, that sort of thing. So again, it's Chris Anastasia with Pransform signing off from episode 4. Really appreciate you guys listening. Really appreciate you liking and sharing the podcast. And we'll talk to you again soon this week, guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.